I think we're rolling. So we're rolling into another conversation with Rob. I haven't actually done one of these in a couple of years, but I'm very happy to have my good friend Kevin Flanagan with us today. And we're going to explore what he's been up to in the world. How are you, Kev?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I've been wanting to get you on this for a while now because you are a little bit of a, well, I look up to you a lot and I can't say that enough. You and me have known each other for what, 10 years now, I'd say?
10 years. Yep.
And I don't know if we're going to explore
No.
the catalyst what brought us together. But I would like to explore some recent developments in your life because you've
hmm
just set up your own coaching consulting business, and I'd like to explore that. So maybe we can talk about,
Cool.
what it was that got you into personal development in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we've known each other for a very long time, a decade now, and that is a very interesting story. It's not a typical friendship, how we got to know each other and all the stuff that was happening back then. Let's
Nothing
just say
illegal as well. Let's just put it on the record. Nothing illegal.
nothing illegal. No, of course not. But it was legal. It was, uh, I mean, yeah, this question I find kind of interesting. You asked me this before, like when did I get into personal development, and it made me think about it because I was like, I never thought of it as something I was like getting into. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
like a conscious decision to say that this is important and this is something that I'm interested in. Um, but I guess like if I mean, and so everybody's life, all through their life, they are in one way or another engaged with personal development. Like we're always, it's human nature to want to do better. You know what I mean? It's one of the things that I love about humanity is that we're never satisfied with what we have. Like once we get to a goal, once we achieve the thing that we want, like the job promotion or just the nice things that you want to have in the world. We get tired of them very quickly, and we move on to the next thing and the next thing. And that's a pretty natural thing for humans to do, to always want to be bettering themselves. But if I was to put my finger on it, kind of maybe a very significant step that I took in that journey of development was probably going to India in 2008, which was just maybe 6 months before we met. I guess I had been in India, and I was one of those kind of like typical hippie type people. I was going to India with a really like with a purpose in mind. I had already been reading a lot at this stage about Eastern mysticism, concepts like self-realization, um, higher consciousness, finding contentment within yourself.
Mm.
Like there's these ideas in say Buddhism, for example, where life is like the wheel of a bike, and all of these events and activities and happenings are going on around you. This comes back to what I was saying a minute ago about kind of never being satisfied. There's always new impulses, there's new desires, new experiences going on in your life. And Buddhism talks about how to bring your consciousness to the center of this wheel, so it's kind of still
Mm.
while the world goes on around you. And this was something that really appealed to me, like finding this inner contentment, this inner happiness, which if found would mean that I didn't need to find satisfaction outside of myself, that I was complete and I was whole as I was. So I was like very interested in that side of things, in the Eastern mysticism, in Hinduism, in self-realization and consciousness, conscious expanding, and really this very strong sense of the world is for me as I perceive it to be. So if I perceive it to be bad, or if I perceive like myself to be like incomplete, or that I need to achieve something, or I have something that I have to do, well, that's something that happens entirely in the mind. And
Mm.
so by doing mind mechanics. I've come up with different terms for these things over the years: mental alchemy, mind mechanics, realizing that I actually fundamentally could change my reality.
Yeah.
And then seeing that, like putting that into effect in the world, which is kind of like when we met, right? I guess like we've mentioned it a couple of times, just to give a bit of context for people who might be thinking something weird is something weird is going on. Once I had come back from India, and it was just when the recession was like really kicking off. You remember that time, the financial crisis. I happened to get myself a job in working for a bank.
Mm.
Like very, I could say at that time it was very lucky in the sense that it was really hard to get work at the time when I came back. But I'm sitting in this job. It was like customer service for the bank. It wasn't like a teller or something. And I'm keep looking out the window, you know, and I'm like, I just came back from India, and like, there's a whole world out there. And what the hell am I doing sitting at this desk? You know, tapping away on a keyboard, looking out the window and imagining like what else I could be doing. And there was always this sense of wanting to not just change myself, but I wanted to help the world, you know. And I was young and foolish enough to think that I could do it, you know. And I still am a little bit like that.
I don't
And
know if I'd call it foolish, though.
well, it's foolish in an archetypical sense, you know.
Yeah.
You have the courage to do it, you know. You're foolhardy about it, you know. And not foolish per se, but like in the archetypical sense, like the first card of the tarot is the Fool, the Zero, and it's the beginning card, it's the adventure card, you know. It's the card where everything is possible. So but at the time, as I said, the recession was kicking off, and I knew about banking. You know, I had been reading about the financial system, how money works, what it is, why does it, you know, why is it so prevalent in society? Where does it come from? I had known about that, and I'm working in the bank, and I have these like. Seriously, I had like old women who would call me and they're so afraid that they're going to lose all their savings because this recession is happening. And I'm sitting there like, but it doesn't have to be this way. Oh my God. You know, just that because people didn't realize how the financial system was working and money worked. And I kind of started to see this bigger problems in society and how that, when you trace these problems back, they all come back to the mind, you know, and how people perceive themselves in relation to society, in relation to the state, in relation to the outside world. And that perception actually defines what the world is. When the majority of people perceive a thing to be a certain way, whether or not that's an actual fact, we still live as though it is actual fact. And so I made the website, an online forum, to try and like pull together loose strands of people who were in Ireland who were probably thinking the same way as me at the time. People who were interested in what was happening with the financial system and the nature of money, but also deeper, like to go deeper into the court system, how the courts are operating, how law works, like in a jurisprudential sense, in a I would say spiritual sense. I always looked at it from a spiritual point of view. That made it a little bit, I think, me a little bit different from the other guys who we met early on for that website. For me, it was always spiritual. It was always like self-realization and, you know, taking ownership of yourself and your narrative, and to do something to change the world, realizing that you have power, albeit limited power. You have some limited power to do things in this world. And if you use that intelligently, if you understand the language of symbolism and mental mechanics, mental alchemy, how to use language, how to use words to actually change the world. It was amazing time of my life, and I'm sure for you as well. And that's when we met a lot of like really interesting people and so on. So I've kind of forgotten what your question was. I've gone on such.
Well, it's all sort of in the realm of personal development, right? So
yeah. So personal development, and I guess like through all of that, I was becoming a different person. I was changing, and um, there's a saga there of like maybe 4 or 5 years of doing activism. I hate the word, but like being active in wanting to change my world.
But
For a
that's the
number,
hero's journey, right? Like we go on
that
this
is the
journey
hero.
to learn our own style of leadership, what it is that we want to contribute, the value we want to bring back into the world.
Absolutely, that is the hero's journey. And so then I started to realize that uh, I came a bit disillusioned with that movement because of the sense that it became a big movement in Ireland, a protest movement and so on. And I just started to feel like I didn't resonate with that message anymore.
Mm.
It wasn't what I was about. It wasn't what I wanted to achieve. And it made me realize more and more that the answer lies not so much in trying to change the system, but in helping people change themselves, to
Mm.
change their own view of themselves, to become the hero of their own saga, to become the master of their life, to connect with the inner master inside of themselves, and to take complete control, well, as much control as is possible of themselves and of their own life and their future. And when I said yes to my call to adventure, I can remember the night it happened, when I said yes, when I had this like realization, combining what I had learned in India and Eastern mysticism with Western philosophy, but also what I had begun to learn about the nature of the society today, the relationship between the individual and the state in a philosophical sense, in a spiritual sense. When all of this combined together, it was like the path was laid open in front of me. I could see this journey that I was about to go on. And I said, yes, I am doing this. I
Mm.
am doing it. I quit my job within 2 weeks of this happening. They asked me why was I leaving. I said, I can't work here ethically anymore. My heart was calling me to a different way. And I remember there was one guy who I worked with who was one of the few people I got on along with well there at the bank. And we were walking home from work one day and I was telling him about this experience I had. And I can remember, I can still hear myself saying it now. This is my life now. This is my life now. I made that very conscious decision to say yes to the absurdity, the absurd adventure that I was being called on. And that just completely changed my life in ways that I could never have imagined before I said yes to that adventure. I'm not coming from let's say, very like great background. I haven't had a very easy start in life. And the pool of opportunities for me, I would have perceived as being quite limited in terms of my family contacts and
Mm.
the start that I had in life. But that pool became bigger. That pool became an ocean, not because of what was handed to me, but because of what I made for myself.
Yeah.
And that was the big eye opener. Like, we're all dealt cards in life. We're all dealt different cards, and we can sit there and we can play cards. I realized I didn't want to play cards. I don't want to play the game. I want to play my own game. I want to walk my own path. And fast forward till today, like, I'm now working for an international nonprofit organization that's working directly with students to teach them mostly about liberty and about like freedom, personal freedom, how societies can be run better with better policies and so on. But ultimately, what that's really about, it's not about the policies and it's not about the surface, what you see.
Okay, so we're back. I don't know what happened there. We froze, but you were on a roll, and you were talking about the Students for Liberty and the work that we do
Mm-hmm.
with students around the
Mm-hmm.
globe.
Yeah, so it's super rewarding to be able to, impact the lives of at this stage thousands of students from across the globe. First of all, talking about something that's fundamentally important to me, which is personal freedom. That equates to choice. It equates to the ability to express yourself, but on a much deeper level, it's self-realization. I see the two as one and the same. Even on the wall behind me, I don't know if you can see that, I have a poster, and on this piece of paper, the word freedom is written in probably like 20 or more different languages,
Hmm.
and by the students who we work with in SFL. So that's like the very rewarding work that I'm doing.
Tell us a little bit about SFL and the mission.
Mm-hmm. So Students for Liberty, the mission is to educate, develop, and empower the next generation of leaders for liberty. And the vision of the organization is a freer future for all. So we're connected by the fundamental value of freedom, which can, break down into different components. You've got like, personal freedom, economic freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, for me, it just equates to choice, having choice, the ability to choose to live your life in the way that resonates with your heart, with your purpose. And this is the only way, for me, this is the truest way, the only way that society, civilization, humanity can evolve is by having that freedom to explore the self and what it means to be human, and to change that as we go along. So one of the main things that SFL does is like host conferences to attract students to the ideas. For those students who are into the ideas and who also feel that these are fundamental values for them, then we have leadership development programs where we will give students training in, you name it really, events, marketing, leadership, so on. And we continue to develop them throughout their time in SFL. So this is like a surface level. It's very rewarding. I feel like I found my place, a place that I probably would not have ended up had I not had said yes to the adventure earlier in my life, and now I'm living a life where I'm traveling the world, visiting different countries, meeting amazing people, experiencing different cultures, experiencing life, all the many different flavors that life has. But ultimately, when I'm working with students, it's driven by a deeper sort of ambition, which is working with people individually. Like, you can sit and read books about freedom and economics, whatever, until the cows come home, as we say in Ireland. I never get to say these sayings anymore. But if it's not something that's happening internally, as in sense of your being, a sense of who you are, then it's kind of useless. So that's what I like to operate. I like to focus on this mindset, and changing the mind is the key to changing the world. Changing your mind is the first step in changing yourself. Changing yourself will have an impact on the people and the relationships around you. And it ripples out like waves across eternity. So that's something that I find very deeply rewarding and satisfying. And as I said before, it gives me a sense of purpose in my life.
Yeah, and you're living in Georgia now, and there's a massive Students for Liberty community in Georgia. You just recently had, was it 1,400 attendees at a conference?
Yeah, around 1,400, yeah.
Those are really amazing numbers, like in terms of, we had a conference here in 2016, and we had less than 100 people. So there's a massive gulf and difference in the attendee rate. What do you think is the main difference there?
The main reason for that?
Yeah.
It's for me, it's quite obvious. I'm living in Tbilisi now in Georgia, which is like former USSR. I've also lived in Ukraine, Kiev for over a year. I've lived in Czech Republic for over a year. So for the last 3 going on 4 years of my life now, I've lived in the former USSR. And what's really interesting for me is working with the students in these countries. They always have great turnout. Like Ukraine had great turnout at conferences as well, with like upwards of 300 people or more. I think it's quite obvious. It's that here freedom is still, something that they really crave and desire, and they know what it's like not to have it.
Yeah.
And in the, let's say, Western, but I hate that phrase as well, like more affluent countries of Western Europe, Central to Western Europe and America, they are like, we're relatively free in social terms. There's a lot of stuff, like there's a lot of restrictions. There's a lot of things that we might still like to change to create greater freedom, but we're comfortable. We're happy. We have access to food, we have access to health, we have comfortable homes, we have many ways to entertain ourselves on our, digital TV, internet. So it's like we're quite comfortable. And what I mean is that it's not imperative to promote freedom. It's not felt as this is like something that is necessary to do in order for your country to be safe and happy. Um, in the former USSR countries, I think there's a lot more of a pressing feeling where this is something that they're not doing it for a hobby or to get some experience for their CV. They're doing it because they're like, I don't have a choice. I want my country to be free. I want to have a wealthy country. I want my children to grow up in better circumstances than I grew up in, which
Mm.
is what same as what their parents and grandparents would want for the generation who's active today. And of course, like they all have stories, all the grandparents, all the uncles and aunties, they all have stories about what it was like back then. And to be honest, it's quite embarrassing for me sometimes if I'm having a political conversation with people in this part of the world and they ask me like, oh, so like Ireland, yeah, they really love freedom in Ireland, don't they? Like you guys fought for your freedom
Used
for
to.
hundreds of years. This is the point, you guys fought for freedom all this time. You must really love freedom. And you're like, well, actually, like people are calling for bigger government in Ireland. People are calling for more um, government powers, and those people might not even realize they're doing it. I'm talking back to the protest movement that I was involved in. This is why it didn't resonate with me. The stuff that they were calling for, I just was like, no, that's just big. Why do you think the answer to bad government is bigger government or
Mm-hmm.
more government or different government? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you really push those people, when you really, really push them, like having intellectual philosophical discussion about their view, when it gets down to it, what they're really saying is, well, if I was in government, I would do it differently. So it's
Mm.
like they actually kind of have secret aspirations to power. And well, if us and me and my buddies were in there, then we would do it this way and we would do it that way. But it's not, So that's my views on that.
Yeah, it's kind of tragic. Now, we've both been attending and facilitating leadership events with Students for Liberty over the times that we've been involved in the organization, like 4 or 5 years together. What's some of the best things that leaders have gone on to do, in your opinion, that you can sort of see a direct connection between the impact of the training that they've gotten in SFL?
Yeah. I'm getting a message here that my connection is unstable, so just let me know if there's
Yeah,
any
you sound
problems.
grand. You sound grand.
Yeah, so I mean, gosh, there's so many examples to choose from. I mean, we've had people go on to be elected to local parliaments. We've had people go on to be very well established journalists. We've had people go on to set up their own think tanks, specializing in certain areas of concern. Again, with the ethos and philosophy of freedom behind that. We've had people go on to become like academics and reach their PhD level and so on. And I think like we could sit here and list kind of like the trainings that we give and the skills that we offer. But actually, I think one of the best ways to think about SFL is to think about like as an incubator for somebody's individual greatness.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all. There's no like step by step path to this conclusion. This is what I love about it. It's about honoring the individual inside us, which is the self, which is the self realization. It's namaste. In India, they say namaste, which means the higher self in me bows to the higher self in you. I recognize you. I see you. I see your greatness. I see that you have the same gift of freedom as I have, and I will protect. It's in my interest to protect your freedom, and it's in your interest to protect my freedom, because this is the way that we can best grow. This is the way that we can best flourish. So this is one of the things I think is very interesting, that it's not like a one size fits all sort of approach, but it builds character. So
Mm.
even if people go on to do things that might not be directly related to the liberty movement, which is absolutely fine, they got to work in whatever private sector, and that's fine. But I believe if you ask any of those people who have gone through our programs, did SFL have an impact on your life? They will say yes. And if you ask them to put their finger on it, they might name a few things. They might say, "Oh, the training was great. The people, actually, people often say like the community is the most amazing thing about Students for Liberty." But ultimately, like it's kind of subtle how having a network like this that is focused on, individual empowerment, which is focused on, giving you the skills to make yourself a better person, to expecting, encouraging you to step into your power, and that is the magic sauce that turns out great leaders at the end of the process.
Yeah, and one of the like what really struck me there was going back to a talk you gave 2 years ago in Gummersbach about the culture of SFL. And I think if you ask people that go through the program about what's the culture like, it's kind of hard to describe. There's something incredibly magical about it, but you described it very well. I'd love you to share some of your thoughts about the culture of SFL.
Yeah, so let's just put it into a bit of context, just a little bit of background here. I joined Students for Liberty as a volunteer as well. I had already had like a bunch of experience from the website and the stuff that we were doing in Ireland at the time. But I joined as a volunteer, as like nobody knew me. I had no like contacts or friends in the organization. And I remember when I was being interviewed, I I thought, whoa, there's people here working for this movement. I was like, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. Right. And it was like within 6 months, 5 or 6 months, I had become a staff member. I'd become the manager of the program. I just walked in the door and like I'm only saying this to go back to the point I made earlier on about saying yes to the adventure
Mm,
and realizing that, you've got some power, you have some power in your mind. Like you can make stuff happen through conscious intention. So I was getting to know this organization now that I was working for. I had to get to know the individual leaders and so on, and build a rapport with people. And whenever you start something new, there's always a little bit of uncertainty about, am I doing a good job? How can I tell if I'm doing this right? And every 6 months we'll get like a review, a performance review. And my colleague, a supervisor at the time, was telling me that, oh, your colleagues have really mentioned how you've improved the culture in SFL. Like the culture is really improving, and it had never occurred to me. I never thought about it before, but it was a great piece of feedback because it was a sort of an indicator or a reminder of the fact that I have impact, that like as an individual I can change things just by being who I am, and how I choose to interact with people, and the way I choose to behave actually has a ripple effect throughout the world, right? But here's my little closed
yeah,
circle world of the people I see and talk to and interact with.
yeah.
So that's when I really started to think about the culture, and I was like, huh, the culture, yeah. And that's it is quite hard to put your finger on it exactly, culture. But when you look up in a dictionary, like the meanings of the words, one definition that you get is actually a scientific definition. So if you're in a lab and you're working in a petri dish, you want to grow some like bacteria or something, you grow it in a culture
Mm,
called culture. So culture is like the environment or the characteristics through which a thing may grow. And so the culture in SFL is it's like hard to nail down specific things, but it's the thing that makes people smile when they see each other. Like it can be hard work, administrative work, working on spreadsheets and data and stuff like that. It's not sexy. It's not like frontline activism, right? And it can be sometimes quite demanding. Um, but then when I see the leaders getting together, like when we meet at LibertyCon or we meet at Top Leadership Retreat, and you see this like connection that they have, this like fireworks that they're so happy to see each other. They're like, "How are you? Oh my God, my friend! I haven't
Yeah.
seen you in so." It's this family feeling. It's this family of like I belong. It's this feeling of I belong here. Um, and you can get that in a lot of places, but I think what's different about SFL is that you belong there. If you're a libertarian, if you believe in freedom, okay, there's a place for you there. But you stand out when you step into your greatness.
Yeah.
You stand out. You gain respect. People admire you more. People respect you more when you step into your greatness. And I think we've found ourselves here, Rob, right? We've had this journey and we found ourselves here. We're now in front of audiences of young students. To me, that's the reason why we're here, is to teach, help, guide people to step into their greatness. Because in the part of the culture is we don't resent that. It's not like a competitive culture. It's not like a factions. It's not like people are, because I know some other organizations are like that, where there's factions and they like lobbying each other to elect their guy into the chair position. And we don't do that actually at all. And we don't resent each other's success. We're like, wow, did you see what he did? That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm so
Exactly.
proud of him. He's in SFL. I'm in SFL. I'm so proud that he did that over there. You're doing a great job. And we're supporting each other and we're lifting each other up and we celebrate each other's successes. That's part of what makes the culture in ESFL so special, I think. But the main thing I want to repeat it is facilitating, helping, guiding people to step into their greatness, to connect with the inner master, to believe that they can become more than they can imagine today.
For sure. That's true empowerment, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Like, we could talk about that forever. But yeah, like how can people find out more? Like if they're interested, if they're watching this, they might be interested in getting involved.
With SFL?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So obviously we have studentsforliberty.org is the main website. You can go there, check out, a bit about our work, our mission, our accomplishments, what we've been doing around the world and so on. You'll also be able to see any of the events that are coming up. We have a bunch of events coming up in Europe at the end of the month. We also have our major conference, which is LibertyCon next March, which is going to be in Madrid in Spain. And if you are someone who holds freedom as a fundamental value, then I would urge you to consider applying for the leadership program, which you can also do through the website. It's simple application process, and we'll go to an interview. And if you, first of all, align with the values and ideas of Liberty and of SFL, that's one thing. Then it's also your knowledge of those ideas, your practical knowledge. And then finally, it's like, are you a good fit for the organization? Do you fit our culture? So that's the kind of main things that we're looking for in a new leader. I'd encourage anybody who's even on the fence listening to this to do it, because it's going to like open so many doors for you. Consider this your call to adventure, and your adventure is applying for Students for Liberty.
Awesome. I'd like to go back a little bit because you started a very interesting project related to your academic work, the Brehon Law Academy. I'd like you to talk a little bit about what you've created there.
Okay, so this is kind of going back to my interest in the law several years ago, around the time when we met. I found out about this idea, the Brehon Law, this ancient Irish legal system, the law that was in place in Ireland before the British colonized Ireland. I was super fascinated by it for many reasons that we could go into here, but like there's a lot, I already have a lot of material out there about the Brehon Law Academy, so people can go and check that out. But it's kind of like another example of saying yes to the adventure, of believing in myself. I set out with the goal in 2013 to become a name associated with the Brehon Law, to become a go-to guy on this topic. And let's say 3 years later, 4 years later, I had a more or less accomplished that. Like, there's obviously there's professors and so on who are way more qualified and experienced to speak about this than me, but they're not there. They're not on the internet. They're not making videos. They're not
Yes.
making accessible courses for people. So I mean, there's quite a lot of reading that goes into grasping the laws. Some people know about it, but they find it hard to get the full picture. So that was my mission, to really analyze those existing written materials and to update them and upgrade
Modernize
them,
it, yeah.
modernize it to make it accessible for like a modern audience. So I have my YouTube channel, which is like a lot of videos on there. I have 3 online courses. The first one is about ancient Irish society and culture, which kind of goes into, all aspects of society, how family life worked, how kingship worked, the role of women, education, medicine, religion. Everything is kind of covered in this course. It's like maybe 4 or 5 hours of video. The
Mm.
second course I released was Irish mythology. So, first of all, explain what the myths are, talking about some of the stories, but I like to bring in the archetypal idea, the psychological idea, and how these stories were actually stories of personal development, and that were used by our ancestors to teach their youngsters how to live in society, how to have a fulfilling and successful life, the hero's journey, if you want. And the final course, which was the main reason I set out, but I felt I had to put the foundation in first before I could speak about the Brehon Law. So that was a course that I launched last year, just around this time last year, actually. And I think it's also about 4 or 5 hours. And taken together, these 3 courses like will give you like very, very holistic, clear, vivid understanding of what Irish society looked like, how it worked. And I'm not romanticizing it, in some ways it's like tempting to romanticize it, but I try to put aside the fluff, and just give like the hard information. So in some cases, there's some things that were going on back then that we wouldn't want to happen today, right? But that's not enough of a reason to just dismiss the whole thing. There was an idea that was put out by the British establishment throughout the occupation of Ireland that the Irish were barbarians, that we were trolls. Didn't even like genetically we weren't like standing up straight. And this was important because they needed to dehumanize in the same way that we still see happening with certain regimes today. It's important to dehumanize the
Mm.
enemy in order to justify your treatment of them. So I think that there's like a kind of in the international sphere, when this topic comes up of Brehon Law, people are very, very surprised to hear that there is such an advanced system of law, a just system, an egalitarian, um, let's say equitable is a better word than egalitarian,
Yeah.
system of law. So
Yeah, it's awesome, and I can attest to like the value of those courses. Like, as I've gone through the Irish mythology one because that's very interesting. I recommend that people check it out. And they're still for sale now on Udemy, right? People can grab them.
they are for sale on Udemy. Udemy has just changed its like promotional policies, so it's like I was always given like huge discounts off them through my own pages. I have to figure out what to do, but you can actually get them through Udemy. I would ask people to, if they're interested in doing it, instead of going through Udemy, go to our Facebook page of Brehon Law Academy on Facebook, or brehonlawacademy.ie for the website, and access them through there. Just because Udemy's policies they're really stacked against the creator. So I'm asking you, if you want to do it, to then go through my channels to get to the courses. You'll actually get them for a lot cheaper as well doing that.
And just on that point about your Facebook group, you've a stack of people in there, right? And it's really interesting, some of the conversations and a lot of the things that you post. So I would recommend people go
Yeah,
over
I
there.
mean, it's like it reached like over 10,000 likes this year. which for me is phenomenal because it's a very, very niche topic.
Mm.
It's very niche, you know,
But you
like
tell it
Brendan.
very well. You tell the stories very, very well.
Yeah, that was the goal, you know. So I see that as an accomplishment. I've I've been interviewed like you know on Tom Wood's show about this. I've spoke at the Hackers Congress in Prague about these ideas, and you know people have heard these shows and they might not know me first, you know, and
Yeah.
they heard the shows. I was talking to one American guy, one of the colleagues in SFL, and he says, "Oh, did you hear this interview? That's we were talking about Brett guy on Tom Wood's show." That's like, dude, that's me. What are you talking about? So like, I feel that as a sense of accomplishment that I set out with this goal to be seen as an authority on this topic, and I achieved that goal. The only reason why this is interesting for anybody else is you can achieve your goal too. You can achieve your goal. You know, like there's great things, these ideas that you have sitting in the back of your mind, and you have limiting beliefs that are stopping you from getting there. Those limiting beliefs can be turned into new powerful motivators, and you can achieve these great things as well, whatever you put your mind to, you know.
For sure. I love that. So you mentioned earlier that you're living in Georgia now. Is there something like you posted a couple of things on your Facebook page around the differences between Georgia and Ireland, and I'm just wondering what you miss most about Ireland and what you like about living over in Georgia.
What I miss most about Ireland, I can only say in one word, it's the crack. I miss the crack. You know, the way people are in Ireland, like the sort of like since I've been away for so long, I can appreciate it more, and um, it's hard to kind of put my finger on the right word for this, but it's the feeling of how we are with each other. You know, the way we interact with each other in Ireland. Like I never would have thought of it this way before, but like you're countrymen, you know, and you have your own ways of being and doing things. And even if on the rare occasion that I meet somebody Irish outside of Ireland, it's like straight away back into the old slang, start making fun of each other, and it's like comfort. It's like a comforting thing, you know. That's like they get you, you know. Um, but I miss more than that. It's just like simple things that I miss. You know, I miss Irish butter. I miss Irish butter, and like you know sausages and rashers and all, you know, stuff like that. You know, uh,
It's the little
but
things.
mostly I think that I miss the Irish attitude. It's the Irish attitude that I miss. You know, um, like I was traveling home for Christmas last year, and I had been away for the whole year. I think, yeah, last year was the longest gap that I had being away from home. And I'm in the airport in England getting my connecting flight, and all of a sudden I start to hear Irish accents coming around me, you know. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I can understand what people are saying, first of all, because all the time I'm here, you're out and about, you're in the shops, whatever. People are speaking, but your brain just doesn't register. So when I'm around like English speakers like that, it's my brain's picking up everything, you know. And I sat down on the flight, and these two women sat down behind me, and I could hear them talking, and I could tell they didn't know each other; they just met. But they spoke for the entire flight, like about their lives, about their families, about their jobs. And I
Wow.
was like,
Yeah.
that's Ireland. That's what makes us different, that we can do that. And it's not forced, and it's not done just out of social nicety. It's done because, sure, we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
Sure, we may as well, like, you know. And I really miss that about Ireland, this Irishness. And I don't want people to, I think people don't see that so much anymore. Like, culturally, our culture has become fetishized and commodified, you know, like people are not really respecting a culture. They don't care about it so much, what it means to be Irish. We're become very cosmopolitan, basically like very American and anglicized in our nature and the way that we do things and the respect that we have for our culture and our society. And that's fine because culture and society can change, but I'm so sad to think that we would lose that aspect of ourselves, which is the authentic connection with people. You know, authentic connection with people that you see and meet on a daily basis. There's a lot more, I think, fear um, coming into the country, and things are changing, attitudes are changing a lot, uh, which is kind of worrying to see because it's just uncertain where that might progress to. But in Georgia, like, people are great here as well. Like, people are very friendly. They've got great sense of humor. They're very
Yes.
hospitable, very gentle, kind. They really love the visitor. Like, the visitors, like, really, uh, they're very happy with visitors. And if if I was like with Georgians and I say, why do I want to live in Tbilisi? They see them getting kind of very proud of themselves, and like they're very proud to be Georgian. But same with Ukraine, they're very different type of people, of course. But one thing that they have in common is their ferocious, unerring, unalterable love of freedom. They
Yeah.
love it. Like, the main square here is called Tavi Supleva Maidani, which means Freedom Square. Tavi Supleva is Georgian for freedom, which means I own myself, or I am the god of myself. It's fantastic. I love it. And in the Maidan Square in Kiev, for a long time, for like 2 years, they had a huge building was covered with the words "Freedom is our religion." So
Awesome.
they have this unquenchable desire for their own autonomy as a country, as a nation. All right, and they're, yeah, young nations. Let's face it. Like, '90s is
Yeah.
when they became their own nation. Let's say in the modern sense. Um, but that sort of mentality, you can't have that sort of mentality unless it also applies to the individual.
For sure.
Like, it's an extrapolation from freedom of self, freedom of the country. They go back and forth to each other. So you can imagine the mindset of people here is very in love with freedom. That's really great thing to see. And like you asked me earlier on about this, it's still important here. It's like easy to be comfortable where
Mm.
we live. We're back home in Ireland and wherever else. It's easier to be comfortable, and we don't know how good we have it. This is the thing. We just don't know how good we have it. Not just in Ireland, but like this generation bitches and complains about being alive at the best time in human history. It's
Yeah.
nonsense. Like, they forget that their great grandparents, their grandparents, like, labored, labored in the fields, labored from
Yeah.
as soon as the sun came up until the sun went down. They had muck under their nails. They were like, they had to work hard. And now us are like, chai frappa latte chinos and avocado toast and all, and we're like bitching and complaining about the way the world is, but it's never been better time to be alive. So what are you doing about that?
For
What are you
sure.
doing about that? This best time to be alive. You have the luxury to go online and read about whatever it is you're in, learn about Brehon law. That's a luxury today. And what are we doing with that luxury? I think so. I think that the thing that makes me saddest in this world is that so many people are walking around out there. They don't even realize that they're alive. They don't even realize what they have, this gift, to be alive and to have choice and to have free will and all of these things. And they just go through the motions of what the pre-formatted life that was pre-packaged before they were born.
Mm.
This, like, go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, die. This sort of round the wheel life, when we're living at a time in human history where we have the luxury and the freedom to really explore the world around us, the world inside us. That's the real journey.
And yeah, I love what you said there, but at the same time, I wouldn't, because it's relative, right? There's a relative existential angst that people feel, and that trigger point for them to make some realization that, this can't be all that there is for me. That's very subjective, and it comes
Yes.
in totally different shapes and sizes. So whilst our grandfathers, great grandfathers might have had to, work in the fields, and they might have had much less than we have, it's relative, right? The problems of today, you can't really compare with those of
No,
generations gone before.
you can't compare the problems today with generations gone before, but neither can you compare the opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree that people kind of don't know that they're living until they make some realization. And listen, that's what I'm all about, having people, listen to certain things, look at certain things about themselves. Introspection, obviously is incredibly important in that. And
That realization.
yeah, exactly. And that goes to the next thing I want to talk about is your future plans. So you've set up this new adventure regarding coaching and consulting, and I'd love to hear some of your plans and where they fit in.
Okay. Well, um, yeah. So this is something that you've really encouraged me with as well, and I really appreciate you for that. Um, it's kind of like I feel the next step on the journey that I've been on for many years. It's not so much this is a new enterprise in one sense, but for me, it's a continuation of the same journey. I've been working with students now for like going on 4 years, um, doing like workshops with them, empowerment, training, basic trainings, public speaking, whatever it is. And I feel like I want to bring that experience now, my experience, to a bigger audience. And I want to work with not just students, but young professionals, like people who are like me, um, maybe who are like, they did everything right. They did the college, they got the job, they did everything they were supposed to do, but something just doesn't feel right. There's something missing. They have a comfortable apartment, they have like all the money that they need, they can go on their holiday if they want to or not, but people who feel that something is missing, that they're not completely satisfied with what's going on in their lives. And so basically to try and like work with those people, to help them with the insights that I've learned over the years from the things that I've studied and the things that I've experienced, to try and impart that knowledge to people. So ultimately, doing empowerment workshops and retreats, mindset retreats, is where I want to end up. Taking like 10 people away for a weekend or 5 days or 10 days and going really deep into this like consciousness awareness, getting congruence between your goal, the ambition that you want in life, how do you show up in the world, and all of these things. And that's where I would like to end up. But I realized after a lot of thinking that the best place to start, for me, the best place to start would be in training people with public speaking. This is ranked as like one of the number one fears that people have is public speaking, which to me is like crazy, because we're speaking all the time to each other as public speaking, right? But it's just like switch in your head where it's like all of a sudden your hands start shaking and everything goes
Showtime.
wrong. Yeah. So that's the niche that I'm going to focus on at first. But you know me, and anybody who's like done any of my coaching or workshops, it's not like public speaking completely like external topic. It's always mixed together with self-realization and spirituality and consciousness. So bringing people on that journey, like my public speaking workshop has a lot more to do with mindset and consciousness and psychology than it does with actually public speaking. That's the ingredients, that's the little knobs that you can twist and turn to get the frequency right, so that you can get on stage and you can deliver an amazing speech. Where I'd like to go with that is like people who want to go deeper than to connect with their inner master, connect with their inner sense of self, higher self, and to achieve even greater things in life, like to get the job of your dreams, to get the girl of your dreams, to create enterprises that sustain, to create a legacy for yourself. That's really what I would love to be able to work with people on.
I love that. You're singing my music there.
I know, we sing beautiful songs together, right?
So, like, just wrapping it up, like, let's go far into the future. Like, what's the ultimate impact that you're looking to make on the world?
I mean,
what's the Kevin Flanagan legacy?
If I think about it, it's not like an impact that I'm trying to make on the world. It's an impact that I'm trying to make on myself, so that if I live a long and happy life and I make it to a deathbed, I'll be like, yeah, I'm happy with that.
I like that.
I'm satisfied, I'm satisfied. Doesn't matter. Actually, the impact that you make on the world is in some ways negligible, you know, because time goes on and like all things are forgotten and all statues turn to dust, you know. So it's important to try and make an impact on the world while you're here, but realizing, you know, all the world is a stage. We're all actors. This sort of it's sort of a game, you know. And so I don't. It's not so much what I achieve in the game. That isn't. That's only important insofar as it's important to me
Yeah,
as an individual. So I'm trying to make an impact, not just on the world, but on myself to change and to become a man that I am happy to be and that I'm pleased to be, which I am on that journey. But you know, it's all, we always change and we always grow and adapt. But to be satisfied with who I am, happy with who I am, yeah.
beautiful. That is amazing. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope everybody watching enjoys it too. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
Uh, no.
Where can people find you if they want to get in touch with any of your programs? And
Yeah, so I made a new Facebook page for this sort of work, um, combining my two surnames because they're so long. It's Flanagan and Coombe, so I just put it together, so it's Flanco. So if you search Kevin Flanco Coaching and Consulting on Facebook, you'll find that page. If you know me already, like feel free to message me on Facebook, or you can email me at kev.flanco@gmail.com. And like, don't be shy. I'm always happy to hear from people and connect with people. So if you're interested in learning more about this and what I'm about and what I'm up to, if you're interested, then that's how you go find me.
awesome. Listen, Kev, I absolutely love everything you're doing in the world. I think you're an amazing human being, and I don't just say that blowing smoke up your ass. It's like I admire the shit out of you. You're a really great leader. What you're doing in SFL, I absolutely love it. So I recommend everybody check Kevin out and what he's doing. And thank you for taking the time to do this with me today.
You're awesome. Thanks.
See you soon.
Bye bye.